The vampire. Everyone's favorite monster. Literally millions love them. But how much do we really know about the origins of these pop icons? Dating as far back as the Mesopotamian era, almost every culture throughout recorded history has had a being that could be considered a vampire. Consequently, the vampire has been known by just as many names. In India, they were known as Vitalas. To the Romans and Greeks, they were Lamia. It has even been suggested that Hercules' evil stepmother Hecate is considered a vampire. It wasn't until the early 1700s, when travel between Eastern and Western Europe was more commonplace, that the English people began to hear stories. These cursed townsfolk were said to prey on their immediate family after they died, generally one family member at a time, causing misfortune, illness, and ultimately death. Unlike the stories of vampires today, there were many ambiguous reasons as to why someone would return from death. Most popularly being immoral behaviour while the person was alive, or simply improper burial. English authors, most famously Bram Stoker, noted for his famed novel Dracula, heard these stories and put pen to paper, as have countless others since. At this time, the public perception of a vampire changed. What were once ghouls with no other purpose than to torture and kill those that they loved, quickly changed into Eastern European nobility, forever pining for their lost loves in their giant castles. While vampires have enjoyed a steady coast through all the years of books, film and television, a lot of the original legends and lore remain the same. Today's vampire is not so much a monster as a pop icon, and fame has only strengthened the vampire both literally and figuratively. As with all good legends, the vampire's power seems to have grown over time. Early stories of vampires painted a much bleaker picture of what it meant to be undead, generally being depicted as bloated corpses still wearing their burial clothes, with an immeasurable stench coming from them. But over countless retellings and seemingly a testament to the power of good PR, vampires are generally accepted to be able to make more vampires, not something that was ever attributed to them in earlier stories. While vampires had seemingly always been able to float, many modern vampires can fly, similar to that of comic book heroes. As time has gone on, vampires have also acquired the ability to turn into animals, generally wolves, often bats, sometimes rats. As well as that, some also have the ability to turn themselves into mist. Most modern vampires also have the ability to read and control people's minds. Typically, all modern vampires have speed that could only be compared to that of the Flash or Superman, not to mention physical strength that seems to be directly related to how old the vampire is, although even the weakest vampire is much stronger than any human. Of course, all vampires are immortal, which means uninterrupted a vampire will never die, a handy advantage to have. Many vampires have been reported to be able to hibernate for decades, sometimes even centuries, although this hibernation does seem to leave the vampire quite weak. And perhaps the most concerning of all of these abilities, too many modern vampires aren't destroyed by the sun anymore. Just saying. These abilities are just the most common amongst all modern vampire media. It's not to say that vampires in other stories don't have other powers.
Seeing as modern vampires seem to be immune to practically everything, we'll have to go with effective prolonged incapacitation. The most effective method of prolonged incapacitation for a vampire would be decapitation, although you pretty much find that works for everything. The next most common would be the classic wooden stake, /bullet, /broken pulchute. Note, this does have to be through the heart, just to avoid those awkward moments. Fire's always a good bet, although some have been known to survive that. Next, probably garlic. You don't see it so much anymore, although you don't hear about Italian vampires very much. Crosses and holy water. If you were fighting a vampire pre-2000, they were great tools, but now not so much. Wonder why that is. We're looking at you, church. Next we have silver, probably the most important tool for a modern vampire hunter. It seems to burn vampires today. And also, it is a metal, so you can make something to remove those pesky heads. And of course, the once vampire hunter failsafe, sunlight. Although these days you can't be too sure. Even with a boot full of all these weapons and a diet consisting entirely of Italian food, modern vampires aren't easy prey. Today's vampires don't fear the dawn and scurry back to the coffin by day. Instead, they just casually slap on some sunscreen, some Ray-Bans, fearing nothing but decapitation and bad PR. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment below. Still haven't got your vampire fix? Well, here's a list of Wise recommended vampire viewing.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit us up on our Twitter and our Facebook. And for weekly updates and more videos, subscribe. See you next time. Stay wise.